It's so nice to meet everybody. I'm sorry I'm not there in person. I would have loved to. There's a lot to share, and I have little time, so I would love to tell you all about some of the research I've been doing and some of the equations I've been working on. What the ancient people called prana or mana for the Hawaiians, or chi for certain cultures. This in physics is called vacuum energy or 0 point energy. It's called 0 point energy because it fluctuates. It has energy even at 0 Kelvin. But this energy is happening at the grain size that is so small that you don't have a direct experience of it. And we are just starting to discover this in science. And what we are starting to discover, and especially my equations, is that this field of energy, this field of information is what is the source of everything. That means it is the source of the forces that we see in nature. Like gravity, electromagnetic force, and strong force, and weak force. And it is the source of all the material world. And what I mean by the material world is that I can prove that this energy produced the mass of all the atoms. And it is the source as well of the expansion of the universe. And now we are starting to be able to prove that it's the source of the organization complex that makes the biology. So you are made out of this energy of the vacuum. And this energy is non-trivial because you are made out of 99.99999% vacuum. So what you call you, the thing that you can touch, is only 0.0000001% of what you are. And as you go through your day and interact with the universe, you lose some of the vacuum material. Your cells divide at about 1,000,000 cells every second. And there is 100 billion chemical change every second to replace the cell that are being lost. And so as a result, we eat some of the vacuum, we eat some of the prana to replace the prana that we lose. But you could access the prana directly and not have to take all of these atoms in. In fact, I suspect, and I'm trying to prove mathematically, that the energy you get when you ingest food is not enough to compensate for the energy you lose. In a day where you don't do anything, you recycle at least your body weight in ATP molecules, the molecules of energy for your body. But this is if you do nothing. If you go and do a marathon during that day, you will recycle 1 ton of ATP to provide the energy for you to run the marathon. I suspect that most of that energy is coming from the prana itself, not the breakfast that you had that morning. Because a few croissants and a coffee doesn't give you the energy to recycle a ton of ATP. But how can we access the prana more than we all are already accessing it? we can, in order to understand how to access it, we have to understand how it works. This is why I have spent 30 years trying to understand the mechanics of the prana, the mechanics of the vacuum. And I was successful in writing equations that made very precise prediction. And these predictions were confirmed by accelerators in Switzerland. And what they say, these equations, is that the prana is exchanging information between what is inside and what is outside. So that if you imagine the boundary of a particle, if you imagine the boundary of a proton or of an electron, you can calculate how much information is being exchanged between the inside and the outside. And this energy, this information is in terms of grains of prana, little bits of prana, how much prana is being exchanged. You can think of these equations as how much can a particle eat and exchange thermodynamically or electromagnetically throughout the day, how much they eat and how much they radiate. And you do the same. You eat and you radiate electromagnetically. But can you eat directly off the prana, like the particle that makes you? Well, there is a lot of evidence that what you call your consciousness is actually the result of that exchange of information at the quantum level. That is, that your consciousness is not a phenomenon of your brain, but it is your body, your complete body interacting with prana, with the vacuum. Receiver, transmitter, like a radio that's tuned into a channel in the vacuum. And the channel that makes the radio, you know, have nice high quality singing or low with a lot of noise, the dial that makes the radio work is your state of emotion, because your state of emotion regulates all of the fluid dynamics of your body, like your heartbeat, the coherence of your heart, or your breathing. When you're very stressed, you don't breathe very well. Or the fluids that are going up and down your spine. And all of these dynamics, all of these fluid dynamics make your antenna of your radio a good antenna or a bad antenna. It is clear that if you want to increase the amount of prana you want in your body, you have to be able to bring your state of emotion so that your antenna vibrates at the right frequency. But how do you do that? There is many things in this world that will throw off your state of emotion. Just traffic in the morning can do that. Never mind the kids and the laundry and the work and the girlfriend, the husband. How do you stay in a high state of emotion, in a state of emotion where the prana can flow the most efficiently? When I was a Breatharian, I was in a van, isolated from the world for 5 years. So it was very easy for me to have a very good state of emotion. But now the trick is to have the same state, but have all of the other things in my life. That has proven to be much more difficult. But I know, and from my experience when I was a Breatharian, and from my experience now, that one thing that is critical is that I spend some time every day connecting with the prana, connecting within myself to the vacuum that makes me. But even more important than that, and this might sound really esoteric for a physicist to say, you have to open your heart so that the prana can flow. What does it mean to open your heart? That sounds painful. It can be, but it is necessary and critical, because what does it mean to have a closed heart? It means to be afraid to open. It means to be afraid to connect. Of course, we are afraid to connect. We have been hurt so many times. From the moment we were born in this world, typically, we were very, very hurt. Many of us, from my generation anyway, you know, we were born by some male doctor pulling us out of our mother, cutting the umbilical cord when it was still pulsing, being hit, you know, being put tubes in our nose and acid in our eyes, and and pulled away from our mother. And so there starts the closing of the heart. Defend ourselves to protect ourselves, because the impression is that the world is not safe. And then I'm sure that we had, you know, all kinds of state of emotion of hurt when we had our first relationships and so on, and the marriages and all of the things, you know, that happen. So the heart center, where the prana flows, becomes more and more closed until it is completely barricaded behind walls. And then the prana cannot flow anymore very well, because our state of emotion is creating an antenna that is not vibrating very well with the prana. So now we're going to try to eat more and more to compensate, so that our state of emotion feels safe and that we can survive. And we're going to try to keep more and more of the particles we eat so that we have reserves, because the body and the mind and the whole experience is an experience of shock. I have these feelings in my life at times, and this is when the most important thing I can do is actually open instead of close, because this is an opportunity to increase the flow of prana in my life so that I can be in a state of peace. But in order to be able to open, I have to have the experience of opening before. I have to know how that feels. And in order to feel how it feels, I have to practice. In a situation that is most scary, I have to have the courage to still open and stay open. And in those states, I find something new. I find that I am much more safe when I'm open and connected than when I'm closed and disconnected. And every person that succeed at staying open and connected becomes an example for all the other ones around them, because people can feel the amount of prana, the amount of information exchange that this person is able to do. And maybe as a result, you will start writing physics about the universe, or, you know, something that is, you know, inspiring thousands, millions of people, you know, of your experience, or maybe you will become pranic and you know, stop eating, and you know, you will be an example for humanity, and you will influence the world in a very positive way, even if it's just your family around you, you know, your husband, your wife, your kids, your boss, your secretary. You will influence people in a positive way. You know, so think of your heart, think of your heart center, your emotional center, and your belly, and that region. More you open it, more prana can flow. And more vacuum energy flows, more information is exchanged. And more information is exchanged, more influence you can have on the field and on the world. So this is what I wanted to tell you guys today. It is critical to have a practice that opens the heart every day. Is that when you want to close the most is when you have to open the most. I know this sounds very esoteric, but I assure you that I can base everything I told you on solid mathematics and physics. We can make a very important change in the world if we do that simple thing every day. Every day, to make an effort to open and to experience the vacuum, to experience the prana. We can not only become Breatharian if we want to, but we can start to build our civilization on a connection with the vacuum, with the field of the prana. A civilization that has empathy for each other because we are all connected through this prana, but a civilization that as well has technology that extracts energy from the prana. This kind of technology is very powerful. It has the power to completely change our energy problems on our planet. It has the potential to give us the capacity to travel through the solar system, through the galaxy, even inside our universe. So it is not just a concept of spirituality and love inside yourself, but it is an application to amazing technology. We can have a civilization that works on open heart and open technology. This is a technology that has no limit, that is feeding directly off the source of creation. And of course, if it is feeding off the same source as your body and your consciousness, it is a technology that can reach levels of consciousness. It is a technology that can interact with your consciousness. It is no longer a technology that's so external to you, but it's a technology that's part of you. In the last 10 years, we have been able to make a survey of the amount of planets in our galaxy that would be in the right zone relative to their sun to sustain life. In a very conservative calculation, there is at least 40 billion planets in our galaxy alone that are habitable. That means that there is 80 billion trillion planets in our universe that are habitable. So there is most likely a lot of life out there. And some of these planets are most likely thousands and thousands of years ahead of us. And there is a lot of evidence, there's a lot of evidence that some of these advanced civilizations have visited us. 2 weeks ago, in the Washington Post and many of the news media, the Navy released press release showing that UFOs are real, that ovnis are real. The title of the Washington Post was UFOs are real and people need to get used to that fact. This is from the US Navy. Are we ready to welcome these people with open heart? I assure you that if they were able to come all the way here is because they understand those principles. We are a very incredible diversity of population across the universe. And we have an opportunity in our lifetime to enter this larger community. This is why the governments are starting to release this information. We have this opportunity to expand our minds, expand our horizon, to realize that we are part of an amazing universe full of life. And this incredible universe full of life is feeding everybody from the same source. So when you connect your channel, your radio station to this source, you are connected to the universal community. And your world goes from horizontal to vertical. Spend your time in the vertical orientation as much as you can, because then the little things in your life that are happening every day, and it becomes easier to stay open and not be affected. I must go now. So what I wanted to communicate today was the world, the universe is feeding you. The world, the universe is loving you, and you need to love it back. Open up and love each other and love the universe. Thank you so much for listening to me today.